I don't actually know if that's worked. Oh, it has. Right, brilliant. Okay, and there we are. It took a moment there, but we got there in the end. Right, so tonight I am live with an old friend of the channel, Aslan Rowlands. Aslan, it is great to see you again. How are you?
I'm good. It's a nice warm day here in New Zealand.
Well, that tells you how far apart we are geographically, because it is now the beginning of the night in York here in
I'm
North
in the
England.
future. I'm in the future.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Because you think everyone in the planet is having the same experience as you, but very clearly you can see that in New Zealand right now the sun is rising on a new day. And I suppose as well, you must be heading into, it must be like spring, right? You must be heading into
we're in spring at the moment,
anyway.
So yeah. So we've got springs are weird. I never get used to it. It's always like just the most random weather all the time. It'll be like pissing down with rain 1 minute, and then it'll be nice and sunny. Like at the moment, it's sunny, but it's kind of raining. It's a very weird time.
Yeah, it's exactly the same in the UK, but with more rain. Like I find that especially where I am now. So I'm in Yorkshire, which is it's quite a wet county. You'll find like it's quite.
True.
With the UK, because of our, we're an island, we're right in the Gulf Stream. The Atlantic is right next to us. So all the precipitation that naturally occurs over oceans just spreads itself over the UK. We're a very wet.
We get that in Wellington. So when I'm normally in Wellington, and we get that quite a lot because it's right next to the Cook Strait, and so we get a lot of wind and a lot of cold. There's mountains near us, so we get a lot of like cold air off the freezing caps or whatever, all that sort of nonsense. So it's a very different climb down there.
Yeah, no, I can well imagine. That does actually make me think. Actually, obviously, New Zealand, former British colony, the Captain Cook Strait is named after. So
that's true.
In some ways, we've given you our weather as well as giving you our
Thanks, England. You guys are the best.
It's a shame that I find another New Zealandy type thing that I recall. You guys had a referendum, right, on your flag, and it was a shame because I saw the redesigns that were suggested, and they all look so much better. Like, I don't know what you think of your own flag, but the sort of ones that are inspired a bit more by like the Maori traditions and cultures and stuff seem so much more unique and interesting than like the Australian flag, but with red stars, and the Union flag just slapped in the corner. Like,
I was actually thinking about it last night, literally, because there's a New Zealand flag in my room, and like, I mean, I don't know how bad it is here, but like, I'm very much more aware of the fact of like nationalism in a weird way. Like, I have a certain amount of like national pride for New Zealand because I like my country and I think it's kind of cool, but like not in the way that weird nationalists do. And like, whenever I see like a New Zealand flag flying in someone's backyard, I'm just like, because we had all this stuff during COVID where there was did you hear? I don't know if it reached that far out into the national news network, but like we had this whole protest thing that happened where like there was an encampment of people who basically kind of like January 6th, like they all camped out on our Parliament grounds in Wellington, and because they were like protesting like lockdowns and vaccines and all that sort of junk, and all that stuff is very much kind of what's the word, like twisted up in weird nationalism and all that kind of stuff. And I think like since then it's made me very aware of the fact that there are those kinds of people around the place. And so whenever you see like a New Zealand flag posted in someone's backyard or whatever, it's always just like,
it raises an eyebrow, right? Like
it's like,
which is the nerve.
Because I've been driving along and I've seen some friggin' like Israel flags in people's backyards, and I'm like, what?
It's a bit alarming, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Anyway, the flag thing, during the referendum, there was some fucking awesome flag, and yeah, the one that got that I think was got the best votes, which I think it was called like Three Peaks or something like that, and it was rad. I really liked that, and I thought that would have been a cool one to do. But there was another one that was kind of a joke one, but became kind of a meme, which was called Laser Kiwi. And it was a picture of it was like a MS Paint. Have you seen it?
Well, I can pull it up now. Actually, if I
bring up Laser Kiwi. It's the flag that should have been.
See, you're testing my tech skills early, man. Let's see. Share screen, and then if I find the right tab. Right, can you see that? So here we go. Right, so if I scroll down, there's thousands. There's so many.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah. So the one there in the top left.
Top left.
That one there. Yeah, I think that might have been the one. It was something like that. I think it wasn't quite that. That was one of the ones that was, I think, like voted kind of the best, because what happened was, I think there was like a first thing where, they voted, New Zealand voted for their favorite one, and then there was a second thing where we had to vote whether to change from the old one to this one. Oh yes, there you go.
Okay, here we are. So
option B,
option
B.
B.
I'm thinking of. Yeah. So that was my favorite. I liked that, and because it's got there's a bunch of symbolism to do with mountains and the colors of the Maori flag and things like that.
It's really unique too. Like, it's not often actually you see like triangles used like as a main feature of the flag too. Like, I really like that one. To be honest, I think my favorite. I mean, the ones with the fern and you still got the Southern Cross.
Yeah, that's quite cool as well.
Nice. This one,
that's quite
cool.
The most, right?
It's like it's surfing.
Yeah. I think that's a koru. So the koru is another like Maori symbol. There's a fern here that grows in the forest, and parts of it form this spirally shape, and it's called a koru. And so that's what that kind of is symbolizing, as far as I understand. But if you can find Laser Kiwi, it'll probably be amongst the other flags. If you go back,
Laser Kiwi. Give me a second, man. Laser. Oh, was that in the flag? Sorry.
It was one of the options. It wasn't one of those 5 options. I don't think it reached that far, but like it became kind of a meme. It was kind of like Boaty McBoatface. Do you remember Boaty McBoatface?
I do remember that.
Yeah, so I feel like it was a similar kind of thing where it just became this meme.
But it's not.
It doesn't look like it's there.
Right. Let me give it a quick Google search. Laser Kiwi flag.
If you type Laser Kiwi.
Okay, I'll just. Right, hold on, let me share this quickly. Wow.
Yep, there you go. That should have been our flag. Flag that should have been.
What a missed opportunity, eh? What a masterpiece.
Can you imagine? Yeah, that should have been it. I'm just going to close the door real quick.
What a nice flag. I mean, to be fair, flags like that, I find like you recognize it straight away. No one's going to forget that flag out of all of them. No?
Exactly. No one's going to, as soon as anyone sees that, they're going to be like, that's New Zealand.
I mean, when I think of, it's interesting because when I think of New Zealand, I think I'm a very sporty, like interested person. So All Blacks, so rugby team, which is, in my view, like pinnacle of rugby. South Africa's very good as well, but New Zealand's like for me the top standard. And then the cricket team, who also are very good, like Kane Williamson.
It's funny. It's funny. I'm not a super sporty person, but like whenever there's like a world sport event like rugby, like for example, when I was working on the cruise ships, the first time I went on, I think there was a cricket World Cup and potentially a rugby World Cup at a similar time. But anyway, the point was that I became so patriotic during that time because there were all these other like South Africans and Australians and whoever around, and they would be playing the games on the TV in the bar and like in the crew bar, and like normally wouldn't go out of my way to watch these things, but I was like sitting there with my friends from like South Africa and stuff and being like, New Zealand, we're fucking winning the cricket, and it was and then the same thing like because there was a Rugby World Cup kind of recently, wasn't there?
Yeah, last year, about this time last year actually.
Yeah, and I remember like watching some of the games and stuff, and getting real kind of, come on, and just it's and then sometimes there'll be like there's a video that comes around on Reddit occasionally of one of the New Zealand women rugby players, and her just like beating the shit out of people like in the games, like fending people off. And like there's one where she's like running and there's like a person and she like grabs her by the shirt and like lifts her up and like throws her out of the way. And I'm just like, yeah, New Zealand fucking killing it,
A physical powerhouse.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not normally like that, but sometimes I'm just like, yeah, I get it. I'm like, there we go.
So, no, it's I mean, I'm slightly envious because for one, it's not even a British team. So we have England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. Not even Northern Ireland sometimes. They'll be part of Northern, as a part of perhaps a hint to the fact that we've been a bit of a colonising past. Northern Ireland usually compete with the Republic of Ireland as part of a grand Irish team, rather than actually join GB. But our rugby team is nowhere near as good as the New Zealand rugby team.
I feel like
our cricket team.
I feel like England is one of those. Like England and Wales are one of those. Some of those teams that do reasonably well in like the World Cup, right?
We're the only team from the Northern Hemisphere who's won a Rugby World Cup. So we were in 2003. We famously beat Australia. Johnny Wilkinson's got a last minute kick goal.
True story.
The whole team went to Buckingham Palace. All met the Queen. It was a very grand time. Since then, we have not won a single Rugby World Cup. New Zealand have won 2.
True.
We did actually beat New Zealand in 2019, but then lost to South Africa in the final. The last Rugby World Cup, we lost to South Africa, who then beat you in the final. So South Africa, they they're quite.
I know that's...
So no, we're definitely decent, but just not quite on the level of you guys down. You've got the extra rugby spirit, I feel like. So unfortunately, there's a political reason, unfortunately, for why we're not as good as rugby. Unfortunately, most state schools do not have the access to the facilities you need to play rugby. You can imagine, if you want to play rugby, you need people who are trained. You need people who can give you the crash mats and the heavy weights and the gym facilities, and most importantly, a big open playing space to actually play rugby on. And so unless you're privately educated, there's a good chance that your state school is not actually going to have the resources to be able to do that. And it's even worse for cricket, because cricket, not only do you need the big open space, but you need the actual suitable playing conditions to safely play cricket. So you need a good wicket. You need grass that's been preserved and maintained over the summer, over winter, so that you can play it in the summer. And so, unlike with football, which you can pretty much just play anywhere where there's space, you need actual facilities to manage with rugby and cricket. And so most players in the England national team are privately educated, and obviously because of that, there's a smaller pool of players who will think, oh, let's stick with this, and not like if you're like at a state school, chances are football is the avenue you're going down, or athletics, not cricket and rugby.
True story. I'd not really. I say I've not really thought of that. That's a very good point, though. It's here in New Zealand, as far as in my experience, there is a rugby field in every school. There is a cricket field in every school. Wherever the heck you go, there's gonna be those big fields, right? They're just everywhere, and kids are playing rugby and cricket every Saturday. It's a huge part of our national identity here in New Zealand. And I played cricket since I was, even if you're not playing it at school, you're playing it in your backyard and all those kinds of things. It's just woven into our identity.
Oh, I know. I remember our rugby lessons, our lessons at school, where the teacher took us out into the field and booted a rugby ball as high as he could, and we had to try and catch it. And then another one of our lessons was they had big tires, like assault course tire, like obstacle course tires, from like an old tractor or something that were just left. And so a team of us had to just lift this tire from one end of the field to the other.
Flipping tires.
Yep.
And
that was the extent. That was the extent of our rugby. And then after year 8, they gave us a choice to choose. And funnily enough, only the really rugby-minded people picked rugby. Most of us did not pick rugby because it was not fun. And it's a shame because I think it's a fantastic sport. Like every time a World Cup's on, I try and watch it. I try and watch Six Nations. I'm not really as much into the club side of rugby in England. But then that's probably because football, or soccer as you'd call it, is more... Definitely, that's more my sort of interest at that level. But like in terms of like rugby, it's such a missed potential because there's a lot you could do with it, but you just don't have the funds for it really, and that's the story really of state education.
Yeah, so the state schools and stuff, like they don't have big. I mean, do they have big fieldy kind of areas and stuff? I mean, like you say, that
depends on the
football, but.
Very much depends on the school. So I went to a few schools because my family moved around a little bit. And some of them had essentially just a big playing space. And whilst that is good for like just general PE, like certainly at primary school, like you don't need to be like doing masterclass all black training sessions. Like if you've got space, then you're teaching the kids just like how to move around and getting them used to doing exercise basically to keep them healthy and stuff. But when you reach secondary school, essentially you need more dedicated stuff because like once you get to that level you need to have lots of technical abilities taught and so the school I went to, because I didn't live in like a real inner city area, we had access to more like green space and stuff. So the school I had did have the space, and we did actually have some decent rugby stuff. Like a few people who went to my school did go on to play for professional rugby teams. However, because the staff who were trained to teach are not in high number, and the ones that are trained, chances are not going. I could potentially get more money teaching privately, than accept the state.
True.
Like it's hard to actually keep the resources in the skate school, and that's assuming your school even had them to begin with, right? Because if you're say in the middle of a city, then you've not got potentially a big open green space to just go and use. You've not got the staff or the teachers to use it. And on top of that,
that's interesting
because you have
go on.
That's right. No, it's as you have like a mixed ability of children in the class, and some of them are not going to be wanting to or capable of playing. A lot of them are like, well, we can't do this with them, so let's just get a lesson done. Which isn't to say that they're not trying as such, but it just sort of becomes like, okay, well, I've only got an hour to do stuff with these kids, and that hour includes getting them changed, getting them warmed up, actually starting the lesson. Like you just run out of time, right? So
totally.
Unfortunately, it means that it's not quite as feasible to do it.
Yeah, true. Now I was just thinking that I mean, quite a few. You'll find that quite a few of the players on our like national teams and stuff, they're all from quite rural areas here in New Zealand, from what I understand, at least. I mean, I don't know exactly, but it seems like that being a thing that you've got a rural area, that means there's going to be more access to spaces where rugby can be played and taught and sort of stuff. I think it's just that that having wider access means that you've got just a bigger chance of someone who is going to excel in that sport is going to have access to that stuff. That seems logical to me,
It's 100% is logical, 100%. But unfortunately, money speaks.
No, I agree. I'd never even thought of it like being. I mean, it seems obvious now that you've got to have all like the weight training and all that sort of junk as well. But like we never had any weight training stuff at my school. Not that I don't know that any All Blacks came from the school that I went to, but we had a pretty all right team from what I understand. Like I was on the team, and we had a training schedule that we did. We did more like drills and running and those kinds of things. I don't think we ever did any kind of weight training stuff. But maybe that's something that comes on at a more kind of elite, higher level, or I don't know. But anyway,
Yeah,
about that.
I mean, I think as well, like the outfit, for as much as I firmly believe it is a political thing, but as you say, it's more embedded into like New Zealand culture in part because your teams are so good. Whereas I feel like
that's true as well. Yeah,
because like football is by far and far and away our biggest sort of sport, which ironically we're still not that good at that. If you like, it's taken us a very long time to, our one World Cup out of 22 attempts, and our 0 European Championships out of also about like 12, 13 attempts. So it's not exactly as though we're excelling in our.
Well, you're a damn sight better than us. Our team, yeah.
Well, it's funny you say that, actually. A fun fact about New Zealand's national football team. In the 2010 World Cup, you were the only team who did not lose a game at that tournament. And that includes the people who won at Spain. Yep. You drew all 3 of your group games, which sadly did not get you through the group stage. But you didn't lose. You drew to Italy, Paraguay, and Slovakia, which I think is quite impressive, personally.
Go us! Yeah, well, football or soccer or whatever, it's just not. It takes second fiddle to rugby, to cricket, to netball. Like we have netball is a huge one here, for women in particular. Not so much men's netball, but women's netball particularly. To me, in my mind, it's probably on the same kind of level-ish as basketball. So basketball and football, I imagine, like I think we have a national basketball team, but not in the same kind of way. But I mean, like thinking about that, and the thing of having resources to, in the same kind of thing of having schools that have access to basketball resources. I mean, it would be minimal. More, now in the last decade or so, that we've started introducing that stuff to some degree. There would be a bunch of schools that probably have basketball courts, but just not in the same way that there would be a rugby field on every school. But we have that one NBA player, Steven Adams. He's a Kiwi.
Which I think beats the 0 British NBA players. So I mean, I might be wrong. I don't know. I don't really know anything about basketball, so I'm not.
No, I don't know that much about it either. I just know that Steven Adams is the highest paid New Zealand athlete. I think. And he's also the brother of Valerie Adams, who's an Olympic shot putter, either shot putter or discus. I'm pretty sure she's shot putter. Nice. She's one of New Zealand's highest ranked athletes or whatever as well. Gold medals in shot put. Yeah.
I mean, I think our netball team is decent. For a while, the manager of our netball team was the sister of 2 quite famous international footballers for England. So Tracy Neville was our manager, and she's the sister of Gary and Phil Neville, who were quite good footballers. And I know that netball's taken quite our netball team tends to get to at least the semi-finals and stuff of tournaments and stuff. So we're quite decent.
I just looked up the English Roses fought back, so it looks like I think you beat us. When was this? This is 59 to 55. When was this? On Thursday, the 3rd of October. So quite recently, you beat us. So there you go.
Yeah, I'm just skimming the chat really quickly, and there's some other sports. That Dog on the Roof says curling is something you did in school, which I've only ever seen at the Winter Olympics, and I think it's fascinating. But I've never. I mean, maybe you have to be somewhere that has. It's a bit cold, but you need the ice and stuff.
I only curling for me is associated with Canada. That's literally the only place that I thought was a sport.
I mean,
winter sports for us, anything that's skating, winter skating or skiing and things like that. We have very minimal places where you can do that junk. So we just,
Yeah, I mean, actually thinking about it, Scotland is a bit colder than England, and I think Scotland tend to do quite well. They send quite a lot of winter athletes to the Olympics.
True.
Which I suppose you could also pit on colonialism. Some random geek says he played cricket, apparently, which I'm amazed because America. I mean, it's interesting that America did host the last 2020 World Cup, which is so cricket. I don't know how much do you know about cricket? I mean, obviously you're from New
Zealand,
you
mean the 2020
20 game? Overs? Yeah, I realized as I was saying that, that sounds like the year, but
I know. I was like, do you mean in 2020 or do you mean the 2020? Yes.
So for laymen in the chat, people who are listening, cricket is a game that is played by overs. If you bowl 6 balls, if you completed an over. Originally, cricket went on for days and days. A test match lasts 5 days, which is about 90 overs a day, which is 450 overs, which takes a very long time to bowl. So they realised let's shorten this a little bit. Let's make it a bit more interesting for people who want to just get into it quicker. And so both sides bowled 20 overs. So it's like a quicker, higher scoring or more quickly scoring form of a game. Anyway, America, who famously don't really do much for cricket, co-hosted part of the last World Cup. And they beat Pakistan, which is quite a big achievement because Pakistan are they're one of the best teams.
Great at the game.
They one of the best teams in the world, Pakistan, and America beat them. So
that's like when Japan beat South Africa in the Rugby World Cup.
Oh, that was an amazing.
That was a banger.
I mean, that World Cup is England actually didn't get past the group stage of that World Cup, really? And they hosted it. They hosted the tournament. So
wow.
So it was a bit of a mess, really. But and we also have the frustrated historian, aka Danny Corks here, who
Danny boy.
I have recently watched a video of. I very much recommend it. It was very interesting, very informative, very entertaining as well. But the chat appeared to have moved on before we'd have to the election, which was.
Let's talk about the election.
We've been enjoying talking about sports so much that we've missed the slightly less fun type of sport that takes place in politics, namely the election.
Oh my god!
And I think there is some concern from people in the chat and from myself, and I'm sure you as well, Aslan, about this election and about the very big risk that exists in the potential of the Republican Party winning this election, what that might mean for both America and the world.
Yeah. I keep one of the memes that just keeps going around is like, you know, the amount of absolute nonsense bullshit that I mean Trump is the old person in the race now, like, and he acts like it. He acts like an old man. He misspeaks all the time. He says stupid, crazy stuff, all this nonsense, and says all these crazy things. Like there was the dogs and cats thing at the debate, you know, all this stuff. But for some reason, according to polls, they're still neck and neck, and it's like, what?
It's staggering, isn't it? I mean,
yes,
I feel as though it's it basically is just a cult, really, at this point, isn't it? He's accumulated a cult of people in his party and outside his party that have fully embraced the hard right reactionary rhetoric. There's no, you know, the sort of Republican that might say, oh yes, I believe in sort of conservative fiscal policies, but let's tone down the bigotry and let's tone down the inane, you know, ridiculous comments that we're making. They're just gone. They're not in the party mainstream anymore. The party's now just Trump. And because of that, because his supporters are so ardent and fervorous, there's no other voice but that. There's no pause from just completely irrational, horrendous opinions on every topic.
Yeah, I mean, there's always this kind of talk from, like, there's the thing of like, oh, you know, stop being in like an echo chamber and expose yourself to other opinions and all that sort of thing. And I always remember that being a thing that right-wing people would say is, you know, oh, the left are just in this echo chamber. But it's projection. Like they aren't. None of those people ever go outside of the echo chamber. And whenever there is some kind of dissenting opinion. It's always just like dogpiled and you know, there was another meme I saw of it was an article of something or other where they were talking about, I think they might have been talking about JD Vance or something, and it was just that like someone commented and said, you know, whenever something goes against their beliefs, they just call it liberal lies. They're just like, it's a lie. It's a liberal. What was it? I can't remember now. But they've got a new kind of thing that just they can use to dismiss any kind of dissenting opinion. It's bizarre. It's totally bizarre, and
it's baffling, isn't it? Like I find it's not even just you know, they'll throw liberal bias or left conspiracies at essentially anything, like up to and including just basic facts, not even political ideas, just basic things like this recent hurricane that's happened in North Carolina. And in the East Coast, and it's so terrible. And you have all these right-wing, like reactionary sludge accounts just posting out, Democrats have control of this so that only red areas have been affected. Only Republicans are dying from this. Only Republicans are being targeted. And it's like, what are you talking about? What are you going on about? If there's no, we're not in that. We're not in like The Day After Tomorrow or 2012, where there's just like a ridiculous controlled events happening. Like it's a natural
Marjorie
disaster.
Taylor Greene was saying that she reckons that they can control the weather.
It's absurd. It's so, like, if you pause and listen to that statement, like it implies that Biden has like X-Men storm powers. Like he's fired a bolt of lightning into the sky. He's Zeus now, and he's just struck down at 500,000 Republicans to win the election. And it's like, what are you saying? But then you watch and read what they're saying, and essentially, that's what they believe. That's to some extent, either through just wanting to win an argument or through the sheer level of delusion and hatred they have for what they perceive to be the enemy. They believe that the Democrats have done something to hurt their cause, and that's all they need to vote for Trump.
Another one of the memes that's going around at the moment is that victims of the hurricane only get $750 of aid from the Biden administration, right? And while immigrants or illegal immigrants are getting $2,500 a month and a free car and accommodation and all that kind of stuff, that basically that the Biden administration, I mean, it's all tied up into their like inherent racism towards anyone who's not white. But so they're basically saying that the Biden administration only cares about the immigrants, and I think that's then tied into their thing that they need immigrants to come in so that they can vote for Democrats so that they can keep themselves in power. It's all this like weird racism to do with immigrants and stuff. But I mean, the main thing, the thing is that they don't care about their own citizens and they only care about these immigrants. So they're giving more money to the immigrants and not caring about the citizens. But like, none of it's based in any kind of reality. I made a TikTok about this the other day that the $750 thing comes from a speech that Harris, Vice President Harris gave, where she said that aid is coming out, is going out, and there's an initial like emergency $750 thing that people can claim. They can get that immediately to help with housing or with food, baby formula, things like that. Then there's going to be more ongoing aid that's going out over the period of time that they continue to supply aid. It's not like they're just giving this one thing. And so there's more things for bigger costs, like helping with the housing was the word I used before, but I mean that now. So helping to rebuild houses and things like that. There's more money in that. And then there's also just like food and water and all these other things that they are that the Biden administration is providing to the victims of the hurricane. So there is ongoing
kind
aid.
of here. Hold
right?
on.
Oh, hey.
Hello.
We're in hurricane, and I'm like, my expertise. I live in Florida.
Oh
yes,
boy!
Hello.
Hold on, let me find light. I look like a mess right now.
Not
It's
at all.
Hi, friends.
How are you, Space Cat? And how are you, some random geek?
I'm at work, but my lead just stepped out of the room and like left for the day. So yay, I'm alone in the stock room and now on a decent mic and not have to like join into this call on my cell phone. At least is my mic okay?
Yeah. How awful is my mic? I'm on my cell phone.
You sound
That's not
absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm very glad you could both make it, actually. It's fantastic to have you both here. Just in time for a bit of hurricane conversation. You said your area of expertise.
It is. I live in Florida. I'm actually about to get hit with one Tuesday or Wednesday.
Oh, no.
My house is falling apart. So hope it's all going to be okay.
Well, we'll be crossing our fingers. I mean, it's interesting. The city I'm currently living in is very, very prone to flooding, to the point that along the riverfront, basically, they don't sort of. There's no like the preparation isn't so much. Oh, it's going to flood. It's like this is how high it's going to be this year. This part's probably going to be underwater. This riverfront's going to be gone. Like it's staggering, really, what you have to do. So I can well imagine in Florida that it's going to be a bit hectic. I'll cross my fingers that things don't get too bad.
Yeah, stay safe out there, Space Cat, as Danny Cork said in the chat.
Yeah, so.
Hey, I also have a friend in Florida too.
Yeah,
I like this. Yeah, that's a very nice dog on the roof.
I wanted to highlight
outside now.
as well.
There's also the political hurricane that's in Florida, as like on So Stressed Alchemy, the weekly show I do like every Sunday at like 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. like UTC, something like that. A bunch of anarchists like me and others just like sit around chat about various things. Isaiah Taylor, our Florida correspondent, talks about the various things that this, let's call him a fascist because that's is an easy way to describe like the governor Ron DeSantis of the various things that like he is like done as we're due. Thankfully, fuck him. Thankfully, he doesn't seem to have a chance to like be a presidential candidate. Who knows in 2024? So even like Danny Cork says, like even if like Trump loses election, the Thugling Party right now is still like a good probably because cats, and that's also what we talk on. So it's just me cats. Because
do you think that that Ron DeSantis has a chance in the next election in like 2028?
Possibly. Yeah, possibly.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think so. But like, here's another candidate to be concerned about in 2028. Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas.
Okay, I have intel. I don't think I'm supposed to share it.
Sure.
Share it anyway.
Him. So, anyway, I live in Florida. I have met him. I know his wife.
DeSantis.
Space Cat.
I realize I know DeSantis' wife. I have spoken to her recently. She has been battling cancer. She went into remission, but she's having difficulties again. And she has explicitly told him, you are not running in the next election. And she wears the pants in that household.
True.
Wow.
So I'm not saying.
What's her name again? Is it
I'm not
Casey?
saying. Yes, I'm not saying anything. You didn't hear this, but that's why I don't think so. Also, people here kind of hate him now.
Yeah. He went after Disney.
What?
He went after Disney. How dare you go after Disney?
We don't care about that. We care about first of all, he's literally killing people because now outside workers do not have to have heat protection. Like they don't have to mandate breaks or anything like killing people. Yes. When he put into that law, or he's about to sign the law about immigrants, a lot of people left. That is our agriculture community. He is a big reason why we do not have house insurance right now.
Yeah.
And he did block
that whole thing
from our area.
is
So
that the whole?
Republican business owners I know are like done.
Mm-hmm.
So
That
how
whole thing
well it would go across everywhere, because this state hates him pretty hard.
And so do you think then that if the state hates him so much, obviously, whilst I'm not hopeful there's time to overturn red control of Florida, I don't know how you feel about that, but I feel like it's a bit too
red
soon
control's
for
not
that.
going to happen.
You reckon?
Yeah.
And it's outrageous. I live in a not nice area. I do not live in a nice area anymore. And finding a even like 1 bedroom, $2,000 USD, nothing under
Seriously.
that. It used to be like
Yeah.
600-700 or less. And luckily my place, sorry to take over the conversation, but
No problem.
luckily my place, anyway, they're not going to do rent caps. That's not happening.
Yeah. Go ahead, Aslan.
I was just going to ask how, like, is Florida always been red? Like, has there ever been a time when it's been blue?
It used to be, it was blue, and
I think it was blue too.
sometimes in the 2000s it was blue.
Yeah. Really?
Honestly, I like it.
Very close during the Obama administration in regards to, I think it actually was.
Yeah, I think so too.
But it's not a swing state, right?
No.
Honestly, well, now it's not, because like even before Ron DeSantis, there was Rick Scott, who like basically made it super hard for anyone like a former convicted felon, to be able to get access to like voting again. To that's like almost a Freudian slip there. Felon. No. John Oliver did a piece on this last week tonight, and how it's to get reenfranchisement to be able to vote again is super difficult. And as any of us here probably knows about, like the prison system in the United States of America, the new Jim Crow, basically, that like it's mostly like black and brown people that are arrested in like Florida for felons and stuff like that. And also now, Ron DeSantis is making it like so that police can just arrest you on site and slap you with a felon for just protesting, if I remember correctly, or something to that effect.
They can't arrest you on site. In regards to felonies, I'm not 100% sure on that one. I've heard conflicting information. But in regards to whatever, a couple weeks ago, whenever the Springfield Haitian thing was a little more prominent and there were being bomb threats, my state has the highest amount of Haitians in the entire country.
Makes sense. You're right next door.
They're from Haiti, right? That's where they're from. Haitian?
Yeah. There were protests in South Florida by the Haitian community about, hey, we vote, stop doing that. And that's huge for here, because you do not protest. You will get arrested here.
Yeah.
I was going to say about the Haitian thing. It's funny, funny that you mentioned that, because like it's not, no one's talking about that anymore. It's funny how like these things just become like the top of the like the political consciousness for like a week or like 2 weeks, and it's the most important serious thing ever, and then it's just not even a thing anymore. But like when that whole thing was going on, one of the things that was being pointed out by political commentators, but like left-wing political commentators, which I think was important for people to realize, was that so many of like the immigration that had happened to Springfield, the large contingent of the Haitian community had come there not because they were because the right wing keeps saying that they had been brought there, they'd been imported to this area, and that the Haitians are being. They came there on their own accord because there was there were jobs, right? Those people, there were jobs available, and so those people came, and that was a boon to the economy in that area because there were more people there working, paying taxes, and those kinds of things. Yeah, and it was kind of interesting because it meant that to some degree it was being highlighted that the benefit that immigration has to those communities. But And the only reason that was kind of highlighted was because of this like intense negative highlighting. But I think it was important to kind of to highlight that other side of it, which the reality is that immigration is actually good for these communities.
This argument because I live with a Republican. Want to see something horrible?
Kick it over. Kick it over.
This is my front yard. Oh, he needs to piss me off. A Republican because it is my ex-husband. We got divorced in like 2024, and I guess when I leave, people turn Republican because he was a huge Democrat, so he flipped. Steven Crowder has radicalized this man more than anything else.
Oh God, it was Gamergate for my younger brother.
I feel like I might have to start like pretending to swing MAGA just to make my household less stressful. Just topically.
I'm really sorry to hear that, Space Cat.
I mean, can I ask a question about Florida?
Yes.
So, like, because I wasn't very politically aware when the Bush election was happening, and but there's something in my brain that's like there was something that happened with voting in Florida.
Yeah,
where Bush won over Gore. But there was because of something that happened in Florida. What happened there?
Okay, this is how the Republicans steal the election, basically. Please, Scott, do you want to start on that, or I can jump in as well too?
Go ahead. I was like 11 at this time, but there was a recount, and there was a hanging chat area for the way the papers were. But go ahead.
So I was in high school when this happened because I'm 40 and God, I'm old. But I think it can happen here. I did like a piece on this and how they originally stole the election because like it was there was like a lot of miscounts because of like how they had a scan system for like putting the ballot through the scan, blah, 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 blah. And it's a hanging chat because you have to punch it out. Imagine that. Try to punch out like a thing as well too. Also, what's very complicated about that like voting thing? It was a butterfly vote as well too. So it'd be the presidential candidates on one side and the other side, and the holes are in the middle. But all those holes are lining up in like a one single vertical column. And so if you don't realize which hole you're punching out, you could accidentally vote for someone else. So there were a lot of people who intended to vote for Al Gore and whoever the running mate was, I forgot, but accidentally voted for Pat Buchanan. And if you know anything about Pat Buchanan, pale conservative, basically a fascist, like one of those people that hate immigrants as well too. And
Oh, so Pat Buchanan, he's the televangelist, isn't he?
No, that's Pat Robertson.
Oh, okay.
Too many evil Pats. Yes, close enough. Honestly,
two evil Pats. Yeah.
So there was that problem. So that's why it was like too close to call. Honestly, for people who were watching the coverage, there were a lot of people who were just like it was like CNN, MSNBC, or other places. They were going blue for Gore, but like Fox News, and actually I heard this on the Behind the Bastards just recently by Jack Welch. He wanted his network NBC to say go for red for like Bush because Jack Welch, being a billionaire, of course, and like a ghoul, wanted like the horrible person to like be president. But Fox News did actually say that like Bush won like Florida, while all the S was letting Gore. And then it became too close to the tell, and then there was a recount. And even the first round of recounts, they used the same machines. They used the same machines to like do the count, and that's when they noticed that like, oh wait, this is hanging chance. So it was kind of like the results were still the same. So then they started the manual count. But also, I think what John Barkman said on it can happen on Social Justice Alchemy is that like Gore's team and Gore's lawyers argued that like badly in that he just wanted like very specific like counties to be recounted. If he asked for the whole state to be recounted, it could have he could have like won that anyway, but he wanted the more heavily densely populated counties, like the counties with a lot of black and brown people that like generally vote for Democrat to be recounted. But what caused the recount to stop and it to go to the Supreme Court was the Brooks Brothers riot. It like so like what happened in like 2020, a lot of people kind of like intimidating like the voters and something like that. Because another thing about like the U.S. election system as well too is that like it happens only every once in a while and every 4 years or every year or every 2 years, blah blah blah. And the people who do the kind of like counting are really just volunteers. retirees or like anyone who has the free time and stuff like that. So imagine like a people kind of like storming at your building, like read by Roger Stone. If you know that fucker, he'll like a terrible, horrible Roger Stone, the guy with the huge tattoo
Nixon
on his
tattoo.
back. The Nixon tattoo. He led the Brooks Brother riot, and that's what stopped the count there. Because I honestly, everyone was afraid of their life, and then the case got brought up to like the Supreme Court, and with one of like George W. Bush's appointees, Anthony Scalia, they said like, yeah, that Bush is our president right now. And think back as how old do liberals just like, okay, Bush is our president now, and just like accept that as well too. Even though, yes, one of the times that like Gore won the popular vote, but like the Electoral College, by minority rule, of course, decided our president there. And well, that time specifically, it was the Supreme Court to decide our president as well too. And
so there was a lot of voter intimidation and voter suppression and stuff that did that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So in the sense that that the election was stolen, it was different from how Trump tried to steal the election.
Yeah, it was.
See, it's funny to me because Space Cat, you said you were 11 in the 2000 election, right? I was 2 years old, so for me, my only real memory. Old. No, not at all. Everyone tells me I'm a baby when I'm on these streams. Like,
compared to me, you are.
I think I would have been 11 or 12. Okay. Yeah.
I remember our class, like the 5th grade class. I was 10 because I was in 5th grade. We did our own mock election and Gore won. Yeah. So then we all did not understand why why it had to be recounted, because we're like, well, Gore won with us, so why wouldn't it win with everyone else?
Have you guys watched the do you guys watch Futurama?
I need to rewatch it, honestly.
There's a they did so when Futurama was cancelled a couple of times, and during one of the times when it had been cancelled, they made these movies, and there's a one of the movies, one of the plot threads that's happening is Bender is chasing Fry through time because he's been brainwashed by these alien scammers into having to kill Fry, and so he's chasing Fry through time. And one of the points in time where he finds Fry, he tries to shoot him with his gun, but he misses, and it's in like a polling station in Florida, and it blows up a whole bunch of ballots that have Al Gore on them, and so that was the kind of the joke.
And so I suppose it's interesting that we sort of fixed on this topic a little bit, because for me, there is something, I think people mentioned it in the chat as well. The Democrats have lost this state, and they've clearly been the victors of some chicanery, right? Something's not quite right with how this has happened. But years on, what's been done about it? What's actually been done? And I think that matches a theme that's sort of developed in the chat a little bit, where no one wants Republicans to win, but are the Democrats quite realizing what is at stake, even with the things they've done? Is there a worry that if there's not more decisive action taken against a group of obvious cheats, frauds, and fascists, there's going to be quite a serious repercussion if they win the election?
It's like that thing that people keep saying of like, Democrats when they get power, they don't do anything with it.
Pretty much.
They had the House, they had the Senate, they had the presidency, and they were just like, we can't do anything because that would be authoritarian government control or whatever. So that it's like
Joe Manchin would vote against it.
Yeah, that too. But it's like they take on board that the quote unquote criticism that the right has, which is that that doing any kind of thing with your power would mean it's like government control or it's authoritarianism or whatever, rather than it being a preventative measure against authoritarianism.
At the same time, Well, I think the quandary in my mind is like Space Cat, you were saying a moment ago about the authoritarian crackdowns on protests and the rather awful targeting of labor laws and many other things that essentially have been rammed through Republican courts and state legislature. There is clearly a difference between a blue state and a red state. And there is clearly a difference between having Democrats operating the infrastructure of your state versus Republicans. So there's that really frustrating, they should be doing so much more versus, my God, what happens when they're not in charge?
Exactly. And I had to take a phone call, so I don't know if this was discussed when I was on the phone, if it had stopped me. But this year on the Florida ballot is a law because there's currently a 6-week abortion ban in Florida. So I collected signatures to get that overturned. So it's going to be until viability, right? Well, so it's on the ballot. The police now, on Ron DeSantis's request, are going to people's houses that have signed. This is all done. Like, this ballots are printed. They're going to people's houses that signed this petition and questioning them. And this is done under the guise of, well, we think that some dead people were voted and they weren't. Well, there were thousands more signatures than needed, so it wouldn't matter. But yeah, that's what it's done under the guise of it. I would say that's a little bit of intimidation, and the way they worded it on the ballot was they basically just said, hey, this might cost a lot of money to the whole state, even though that wasn't at all in the bill.
It's a lot of intimidation. It's not a little bit, right? But what frustrates me is that you've got, President Biden and people in Washington surely are being told by the Democrats in Florida, this is happening. We're being clearly censured and stopped here, right? So why is the executive power they have and will have for a bit longer, they're still president, why is there not more being done? Why are they not realizing these guys are fascists? Let's do something.
What
do you expect them to do?
Go ahead, Geek. Go ahead.
I read during the 2020 election, I read the book Yesterday's Man, The Case Against Joe Biden, back in the primaries when we had like many options. And this is the thing about Joe Biden, and I think the same thing with the Dems and how they just want to play by the rules and stuff like that. And that's why like Joe Biden was yesterday's man. He still believes in like the days of the Senate and the politics of old, when like they came to handshake agreements a lot about like this, that, and the other thing as well too. Also, like when Joe Biden was vice president under Barack Obama, he would like whenever like Mitch McConnell would block things in the Senate or like attempted to block things, Joe Biden would call Mitch McConnell all the time to compromise with Mitch McConnell or something like that. So he just honestly believes that he can like compromise with people, and I guess it's like as before, it's like the Democrats, when they have power, they don't want to do anything with that power, or even if they do want to do something with the power, like Bill Clinton, he will just like reform the welfare. I had quotes around reform. You didn't see that. Reform welfare and pretty much gut it like a right winger would, or like but force through like NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement, that even Congress then didn't want, or like with like, well, Joe Biden they signed off on this. Want to be tough on crime, so they had the 1994 crime bill. So it's like. I don't know why they don't like use the power that they have, or they claim that they don't have. At least sometimes Joe Biden actually says, "I will not." Like when he said, like when he was literally asked on camera, "You have the power to like forgive $50,000 in student debts," and he just said, "I will not." He didn't say, "I can't." He didn't say, "I don't have that power." He just said, "I will not."
And I think like Space Cat, you said like
wasn't there just something that was wasn't there something that was supposed to overturn that I heard about like 2 days ago?
I think the courts have has said, or one of the courts have said, no, Biden has the power to forgive a lot of student debt as well too. So now it's just on him to forget it or not. And you know what? That could be the October surprise, Biden. I'm just saying that could help the Democrats out if you really want to win the elections.
Indeed, right? I think Space Cat, you said that what can they do? And I think what to me sort of sticks out is that
what can they do? What do you expect them to do?
Very true. No, you're not wrong. But what I would like, because I'm a pragmatist, right? My views are far, far, far to the left of what is happening in US, UK, most Western nations right now, right?
Oh, mine too.
I think most people's are at this point. But what would be great, what I think would be so an easy win would be if they, for once, cracked down and said, right, okay, no more playing civility and all this politeness politics. We're going to crush the fascists. We're going to put some actual laws down on the people who are actively undermining democracy from America to Australia, or to New Zealand, actually, Aslan, as you're here. Just actually, let's show them that you cannot just run around messing up and causing havoc and basically acting like you're victims for doing stuff that you've caused. And, then we'll see what you're going to say. And I think you find that a lot of them would shrink back into their shells because for all the noise of them, oh, yes, we're the silent majority and we're going to take control of us, red wave. Actually, most people aren't fascist. Most people aren't support. Obviously, you look at the polls and it's 50-50, right? It could go either way. But in terms of what people want and support, people don't want Project 2025. People don't want, I don't know, Bibles in every classroom and transgender people locked away and all the other nonsense that they go on about.
Which is pretty obvious when you look at what happened in the 2022 midterms when basically transgender people issues were on the ballot and everyone was just we don't care about this stuff. And so all of their anti-trans people lost. And then when the whole thing with the 2025 Project 2025 more recently, the fact that, as soon as it was it brought to the national attention, they wanted to shy away from it because they know that it's not popular. And so Democrats should push that stuff. I feel like the weird thing has kind of tried to do that. They've been using look how weird these people are, which I think is a good strategy. And I feel like that's kind of what they've been trying to do with that, because the stuff that they continue to the stuff that they continue to run on is weird. But I think they need to be more specific about because then people are like, oh yeah. That because I think that then people will start to associate the weird thing with the specific things that the Republicans say, that when they come out and they say all the stuff about trans things or being opposed to abortion and stuff, they can be like, oh, that's the weird stuff and that's weird. And then I think they need to do that more.
What do you think, Space Cat?
I agree with you 100% on that. And I think a big thing that needs to be focused on is there are policies of Trump's, which they've mentioned this, that are aligned with Project 2025. Eliminating the Department of Education is a huge one. I don't that many people know what that means. I don't think many people understand that, put it back to the states. They're not prepared. Even if you wanted to do that, you're losing 7.5% to 21% of funding, depending on your state.
Yeah.
I did a lot of research into this. I did a lot of math to yell at people on Twitter. But things like that is people don't understand what that is. And even if people don't necessarily, if people are pro-life and they're not for abortion, technically is how they say it. Even those people, there are mothers, there are people that are going to go, I actually don't want my child that's in special education to have that completely eliminated. And Trump even said that on his interview with Musk, where he was like, let's get rid of that. The only people that really agree with that are cancel culture people, and they just don't understand what it means because no one's explained it.
Or some of the people that do want to like just get rid of the Department of Education completely are those like libertarians, and I'm putting libertarians in quotes because actual libertarians, we leftists, but I will go on that rant another time if I have before. But the right wing libertarians, the lawbetarians as I call them, they want to privatize everything because they want the Frederick Hayek, like a person you talked with last week, Owen, who wants this government to be as small as possible. That like this very little regulations, those are the types that want like education to be privatized and be private schools and charter schools as well too, or be able to homeschool their kids and to indoctrinate them into whatever like beliefs that they have, of course.
I think that's the thing, right? Like at the core of lots and lots of right-wing ideas is the idea that society is hierarchized and has hegemony, and that there's people at the bottom who are only there to make money for those on the top, the workers who are there to make money for capitalists, much like in Victorian Britain when you send people off to the factories and give them like a penny to go underneath the cotton mill to pick bits of lint out, and they go back home and eat gruel, and they do that till they die. And for as much as we'd like to pretend we're in a modern society where everyone believes in the value of education and the value of having everyone live a healthy life, not everyone agrees with that. And obviously most people do, but the ones who don't are sadly running the Republican Party and are listening to the Heritage Foundation and taking the policies from there. So it's so scary.
They know that when there's an educated populace that their ideas fail. They know that that they become, that the more educated the populace becomes, the more they question capitalism, the more they question fundamentalist religious ideologies and those things. So they know that, and so that's why but it seems so bizarre to me that they would that anyone would accept. It's like the same thing of like when people say they want to repeal the 19th Amendment, they want to stop women from voting, and people are like, yeah, of course. What? You kidding me? It's a very
like this comment here, for instance, from sorry to cut you off there, Aslan.
No, that's all right.
But you've got a comment here from Danny, which I think hits the nail on the head a little bit. The weird strategy, I think, was fantastic at the start. 100%, you've got to directly go out and say, yeah, this is not normal. But it's got to go beyond that. You've got to, as you said, Space Cat, think about actually putting the issue center in front. If you put Republicans in charge, the education department is gone. It's put in the hands of people who want nothing more than to disregard any disability, any marginalized community, take all that stuff out of the school, stop most people going to the school in the first place, right? Because some schools are just shut if they don't have the funding they need.
Yeah.
And then where are we? Back in the 1800s with kids going down the mine or on the farm. Like,
I mean, I think
terrifying.
I think Florida always have like expanded like the age of where you're eligible to like work, and also like there was like other stories of like undocumented children or something like that, like 12 years old or even younger, working in factories as well too. So it's like, hey, even though like the picture of like the kid in the coal mine with the minder's hat is like, God, we're no longer in that period of like capitalism anymore. I think some people want to bring that period back though.
Well, that's one of the hypocrisies again of the Republican Party, is that how they rail against illegal immigrants, but actually they need illegal immigrants because illegal immigrants are the ones working under capitalists, and they're able to continue to exploit them more by holding their illegal status over their heads.
Yes.
And so I mean, they're okay with it. I mean, I'm pretty sure that was a Trump, like Trump's done that, right? He's exploited immigrants for a long time. Like there was I think there was Polish immigrants back in like the 80s or the 90s or something or other that tried to sue him, or so he's that they need. So on one hand they need to demonize them, and then on the other hand they actually need them to continue to further their capitalist agenda.
Well, the demonization of immigrants has always been a scapegoat. That's always what it's been as well too.
Totally.
They distract from like the economic policies or the policies that they don't have, that they don't not telling. They always just like use the culture war as a way to distract people into like
that their problems are actually caused by people like Elon Musk, who is a billionaire who hoards all the wealth and exploits workers and all those kinds of things. There's that meme that's got that Musk tends to push, which is Elon Musk got rid of 80% of the employees at Twitter and it still runs perfectly fine. Why don't we see if he can do that with the government? And it's like, have you seen Twitter?
I mean, it's like it's like all the people that work for the government, the state government, local government, federal government. I'm sure they're underpaid and like overstressed and something like that. Now they're unionized and like that's one thing, but of course also many politicians, not just like the Republicans, but the Republicans absolutely hate unions. But like the Democrats, I've been listening. I finished reading the book by Thomas Frank called "Listen, Liberal," and the Democrats have distanced themselves from the FDR time, like New Deal Democrats, since even Jimmy Carter. And like, even though that, like, yeah, of the two viable political parties, of the Republicans, the fascists, and the conservative capitalist party, the Democrats, yeah, the Democrats are most likely to be like the best in favor of like workers and unions and stuff like that. But like again, Bill Clinton and the NAFTA, the free trade North American Free Trade Agreement, that was created so that like if a factory in Kentucky or something like that, if they were to start to unionize, they can say, listen, because of NAFTA, we can just like take this plant all the way to Mexico where it's cheaper there labor. So are you sure you want to unionize? And that was used for union busting as well too. And yeah, the Danny Courts look at that. The Twitter has always been a dumpster fire. It's just got worse under Musk. I agree. And like, yeah. And the culture war things, like conservatives often claim that trans people and drag queens are being dangerous to children, and yet they themselves openly admit to not caring about children. I think one person said, when you look at the people who actually are like touching children or doing that sort of thing to like children, it's often is like conservative men that are doing that. And one person tellingly said, I think the reason why they're going after drag queens and trans people for grooming children, as it were, is because they want to do it themselves, not the others.
The thing that I always come back to with the whole grooming and exploitation of children thing is it's got nothing to do with a person's identity. It's got to do with their power. It's a power imbalance. It's an abuse of power. So you're gonna find that I suppose identities that have an intersection with power. So things like police officers, pastor, church leaders, or religious figure. I mean, not necessarily the fact that it's religious, but it's the fact that you have these hierarchical situations where they are, which allows for
community
the
leader
abuse of power. Exactly. I mean, or even just parents. Parents are in a position of power, and they're able to use that to abuse children. I mean, that's what child abuse is. It's an abuse of power. It's nothing to do with, this person is a such and such person, therefore they are more likely to do such and such. It's because this person has more power over their child, and it gives them it affords them the ability to be able to abuse those children. And so and that's the thing that's always missed in these conversations about like grooming and all that sorts of stuff. And then because the thing is that there will be a situation where a drag queen or a trans person or a gay person or whatever abuses a child, and the right will say, aha, look, you see, I told you that. But again, that misses the point that it's got nothing to do with the fact that they're gay or that they're trans or whatever. It's an abuse of power.
I completely agree, Aslan. I think that it's as someone who works with children, it's quite disgusting really that it's almost turned into this game, almost like it's turned into like, like you say, we found this
points on either side, right?
Yeah, like, and you can tell because I think linking back to what you said, Space Cat, about the clear threat to education if a Trump administration takes hold. You've got people in the Trump administration who actively do not believe in counseling, sex education, support for vulnerable children, even having administrative bodies who'd be able to oversee what's going on with those things. They want to get rid of it all. And so the obvious danger is right there. Can you imagine the safeguarding catastrophe if all the structures and framework that exist in state education were just gone? It's terrifying.
Now, my state the way my state works is Florida is abstinence only teaching. There's no sex education. You have 1 week in health class. At least I did in high school, and I think it's the same way. You have 1 week. It kind of explains STDs. You have 2 days abstinence only. My high school also had a daycare for the children of students. So that did not work. Granted, I'm so happy it had that daycare, and they made it a class so other students could watch them. I'm so happy they gave that opportunity to students' children and to those students that could graduate. But do we not see that did not work, everybody? It did not work.
Yeah, it never does. It's like, even if you're like a religious person and religious parents, and like the other people, no, if you do this, you do any kind of sexual things, like the devil will infect you and you will die. But like, so they will scare to do it. And once they finally do it, whether it be masturbation or full sexual intercourse or like that, they'll be like, oh wait, I'm not being infected by the devil. This seems fine. And they'll do a lot more of it, and probably without protection or like any concern or something like that. And so, yeah,
there was zero resources. I didn't know where to get birth control pills. I didn't know where to get condoms. I had to figure that out on my own, and figure out there was a health department in my county that did that. And then share that with my friends. That should have been something provided to, that information should have been accessible to me.
But when you see that they are doing like that kind of like proper like sex education and stuff like that, then there'll be the thuggins that will say they're teaching our children how to masturbate, and it's just like, no, you didn't look into the thing. They probably mentioned it and it's like a thing, but like I agree, Danny. The U.S. needs like a better when it comes to like sex education, not just Florida. Honestly,
I was just using Florida as an example, but yes, the entire nation does need to be, because there are many states that are like that.
Unfortunately, overwhelmingly, the states that are like that more the red states, sadly. I mean, I go to, like, my mind goes to the deep south, right? Your Mississippis, your Alabamas, your Tennessees, where you've let, as you said a moment ago, Aslan, about the hierarchy, the power structures that are at the heart of abuse, right? The mistreatment that children suffer at the hands of adults, most of whom are often in a position of power over the child, like directly, like a parental figure or a senior figure in their life. And then you look at how the people in charge of those states want society to be, with such fixed hierarchies where children are basically the property of their parents, and then they will have children who become the property of said child, and so you have just family lineage and heritage as like the core of society.
You must carry on the last name of Scott, as it were, too, because the time owner
exactly right. And it's so scary that people who misuse system abuse and want to tar the name of anyone who doesn't fit their idea of what family should look like would have control over that label, because overwhelmingly it's very clear where the danger to children lies. And it's not with random accusations of throwing cheapening words like groom and abuse. It's not with LGBT people that they want to lie about and throw every name it was sent at. It's with people who do not believe that abuse exists unless it's against their own idea of society. It's terrifying. It genuinely unnerves me. And it's, to me, that is one of the biggest reasons I really do not want the Republicans to win, no matter what else, because there are plenty. I wouldn't ever say that I'm a Democrat fan or like a big like waving a flag for Kamala Harris or any of that. But if they don't win, Republicans do win, and unfortunately, that isn't something that I would want to see happen, because it's terrifying.
I'm a fucking anarchist, so like, if you want to like know of like my opinions on Democrats as well, take a seat. How much time do you have? Where do I start? But like, it's now, like, the thing is, if I live in a swing state where actually my vote doesn't matter, as well too, like, it's like close, it could be like either or, it's a coin flip, which often most presidential elections are coin flips, at least in recent time. Then if I would live in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, sure, I will vote for Kamala Harris. It's the lesser of two evils. I'm still voting for evil, but it's the lesser of two evils. I live in Washington State, though. So I just like saw like the polls and for like from 538, and it was like 53 Kamala Harris, 32 Donald Trump. So with that 20 points, I doubt that my vote for Kamala Harris in Washington State, that's where it too will matter. The rest of the ballot, though, that's where it does matter because, like, there's no electoral college bullshit in, like, Senate races as well, too. It's going to most likely be, like, Maria Cantwell again, though. And, yeah, there's that. But, like, ballot initiatives, there's always, some states, not all states, but even in Florida, there are ballot initiatives where it's like, yeah, Florida went for Trump in 2020, but they also voted for, like, $15 minimum wage and weed to be legalized. So there's always ballot initiatives, and that's where the people actually have the power to like use their vote to like influence policy. I just hope that the politicians actually follow through on that. So it's just another thing.
Can I ask a question? Did
Sure.
you guys did you guys hear about? You guys know who Chapel Roan is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, not sure actually. Enlighten me.
Okay. Well, she's a pop star. Rose to fame.
Okay.
Pretty recently.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a story that came out. She was in an interview with someone or other. Story that came out, and she was asked about her endorsement or her lack of endorsement for Kamala Harris. And I was in two minds about it. So the reason I'm in two minds about it is because I have a lot of respect for Sam Cedar and the Majority Report, right? The stuff they talk about, their opinions and those kinds of things. And they talked a little bit about Chapel Roan and her lack of endorsement for Kamala Harris, and the things that she said along the lines of there's problems with both sides and that people should use their small vote the best they can and use their critical thinking skills to vote, use their vote properly. And in my mind, I'm like, look, if you're a popular person like this with a lot of influence, who's supposedly and I think that she is. She's an advocate for the LGBTQ community. One of the things she said was that she doesn't think that cisgender people should be making laws or whatever for trans people. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. I totally get that. But also, like, if you're going to come out and say, look, there's problems on both sides and that people should use their critical thinking skills to such and such. And she brought up the Palestinian thing as well, the democratic support of genocide and all that sort of stuff. Again, totally get all that. But I think that to me, and when I've listened to people like Samsey, or it was much more like Emma Vigland and Matt Binder and stuff, saying that it's kind of a liberal point of view to say that she should have endorsed Harris, or that she should have said vote for Harris. And I'm like, well, I feel like that her influence is important and her position is important, and that it is a choice between two people. And to say to first of all to at all say the words both sides for me, even if it's not like at all to say that phrase or to use those words to me is bullshit, and it automatically equivocates Trump and Harris, which for me is bullshit. There's just no way that anyone can do that. There is a clear side that is wants the death of trans people. They will further and be worse for the Palestinian people. All that kind of stuff. Yes, the Biden administration are bad for the Palestinian people and have supported Israel, but it is clear that the Trump administration will be far worse. So to even invoke the both sides thing for me is like, come on, you're either ignorant of the reality and that's just silly and you shouldn't be saying anything, or you're actively doing this both sides equivocation thing, which is, in my opinion, worse. And so why would you do that? And then second of all, to use this like critical thinking skills thing as well, I feel like, again, is like to some degree, it's a bit of a weird turn of phrase to be using because it's so twisted up in a lot of right-wing rhetoric. I don't know. You know, do you see what I'm kind of? What are your opinions?
Yeah, she did a follow-up video where she finally did endorse Harris, but I
didn't see the endorsement. I saw some.
Voting for her, whatever. So it wasn't.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
much of an explanation, but no, I agree with your whole point. Otherwise.
What's honestly, I remember back in 2020. Now, Noam Chomsky has always been clear, like in 2016 and in 2020, that he says like it is important to vote and it's important to vote for Hillary, not because it's a vote for Hillary, but it's a vote against Trump. So Noam Chomsky has always been clear on that. What a lot of people thought that Angela Davis said is that they thought that she was endorsing Joe Biden in 2020. No, I saw that the Democracy Now! Interview. All that Angela Davis said, it's important for us to participate. I think that's a much better message anyway, because also Angela Davis, a communist, isn't never like endorsing anyone as well too. But like she did say to like points to participate as where it was an important election, and I much prefer that one.
I think I like that framing of you're not voting for this person, you're voting against this person. I think that's a good framing, right? I mean, it just like I just feel like when someone is going to when someone has a position of influence like that, and they are, you know, it's one thing to be a pop star, but it's another thing to be a pop star who you know, quote unquote, is an advocate for a certain, you know, for better or for worse, political group of people. I mean, it sucks that the LGBT community is political in this, but it's kind of been made that way. So when you're in that position and you're you know, using that identity to further your thing as a pop star or whatever, you know, I think you have a certain amount of responsibility to use that influence in a way that's going to help that community, and whether that's saying, I mean, I suppose it's less the lack of the endorsement and more the lack of open criticism for Trump, right? I mean, you can say, yes, they're a bad thing. You know, I'm not endorsing Kamala Harris because of her support for Israel, and because of their bad opinions on LGBT people or whatever. But also, just FYI, the Republicans want LGBTQ people dead. They would be worse for Israel. For Palestinians. More Palestinian people will die, and the genocide will continue under Trump. Be very, very explicit about the magnitude of worseness that the Republicans will be for these people. And so you can say, okay, well, I'm not endorsing Harris and my reasons are this, but just so you know, A, I'll be voting for her, and B, Republicans are 10 billion times worse. That could be the thing that you say, right?
I think there's lots of good points in all the things you've said, all three of you. And for me, there's lots of different ways to come to it, right? Like, I think pragmatism is so important with politics. Like, we've all essentially said the same thing. We're all quite left-wing. We're all not satisfied with Democrats. We're all terrified and angry that Republicans are basically on the verge of ending democracy if they win this election. And so that's like a driving force. I think with Chappelle Roan, I've just looked, she's only a few months older than me, right? Like, so we're the same generation. We'd have been in the same year had we gone to the same school. And I think generally, and I thought this too, there's a lot of dissatisfaction and apathy and anger towards the state of politics in the world, where the world is basically falling apart, democracy is crumbling, the planet is literally on an ecological disaster, and parties across the globe basically shrug and offer like platitudes and do a few things here and there, and things get worse and worse. And so I can very easily see why she'd perhaps say, actually, I don't want to just endorse this party because, you know, they're not that great. And I think the problem as well is, like you touched on it a second ago, Aslan, where you said both sides, because we, having spent time online and having seen what people who say things like both sides can often mean, take it to mean something quite bad. Like, because you remember, you know, when like white supremacists show up and smash up a town centre and kill a protester, and then someone on the news shows them and says, "Oh, well, both sides did stuff," and it's like, well, there's fascists here, there's Nazis. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
That's the connotations we take from it.
Don't mind me right now. I'm getting ready. I forgot I had plans, so you're getting ready with me.
Okay, sure thing.
If you were wondering, that's what I'm doing.
No, I had figured. But no, there's there's a loaded connotation to both sides.
Yeah, definitely.
However, as you say, there is a side that's much, much worse. And so we hear that phrase and think, my goodness, what are you saying? It's not both sides. There's one side, which is the Nazi side. And so because of that, we get defensive and caustic and even a little bit cross because with a month to go in the election, someone's showing up and are basically treating it like it's a coin toss. But to me, as Space Cat said, like she's endorsed or said, even the word endorsed actually, endorse implies support and agreement. So, like if I said I prefer, I'm trying to think of a comparison now. If I said I prefer Winston Churchill to Adolf Hitler, that doesn't another word for prefer might be support. Another word for support might be endorse. And so you can see how a few links in the chain, all of a sudden, Owen MacDonald endorses Winston Churchill, and someone says, well, Winston Churchill wasn't that, look at what he did in India. Look at his views on women. And so it's easy, I think, to get wrapped up in like little pop culture moments like this, where we take a soundbite or a sound clip and get cross about it. And there are probably things that Chappelle Roan, I think there are things worth criticizing there. But to me, I almost find like this news bit less important than the wave of stuff happening around it. And so to me, what a person who's my age saying something that's not even necessarily untrue, just like worded in a certain way, doesn't hit the same, like mimetic mind importance as, say, J.D. Vance's latest atrocity of a comment, or the Heritage Foundation, I don't know, writing the latest Trump policy for him.
I understand that. I think I suppose my like the thing with the both sides thing and getting upset about that, I just think it's important for people to be like, if you're gonna take part in political discussion, I think you need to be aware of I suppose the word is dog whistles. I mean, that's really kind of what it is. The memes or the euphemisms. That's exactly. The euphemisms that are used, because if you're gonna take part in an influential way, you need to be aware of those things because otherwise, like I say, at worst you're just being ignorant, and at worst you're furthering a right-wing framing of the thing, and at best you're just being ignorant. And I mean, for better or for worse, this young woman has a lot of influence, and her her voice is important, and I think that I mean, a lot of people were saying on these things that she probably needs like a social media manager or something, because it seems like she's come into it in a kind of non-politically or social media savvy kind of way. Because I mean, I suppose she's kind of stumbled to some degree upon her fame, and now she's saying stuff, and I can understand that. I can completely understand that it would be a tricky position for a person to be in, but I feel like it just, I don't know, it just kind of stinks to me a little bit. But I also get what you mean about, I think it's very important like the things that JD Vance is saying and that Trump is saying as well, and any of those fucking wankers within the Republican Party.
Yeah, another way to frame this for like anyone like me who's an anarchist and like, well, I want to do a lot of praxis. Most I do is like give money to like my friends in needs, like Joanne Roberts, Joey Feinlinger, Nazaneko, Lennon Quinn, and Phoenix, our friend that Owen and Aslan knew, knows. And like, so who you're deciding in when you're voting for people to run political office, even if you're like me, an anarchist who doesn't really like believe in these kind of institutions as well too, you're voting for your opponents. So you rather have an opponent that's kind of much more agreeable to like your positions, like the Democrats are, as agreeable as they are, as opposed to like the Thuglins and fascists. Also, think about this too. We don't want award the rhetoric that like Trump or JD Vance are saying as well too. They think they can like attack trans people, attack like immigrants, and attack like the Haitian community as they do, and win an election that way. So there's that. Which is, I guess, one way to like think about it. And hopefully, well, like you said during the midterms, 2022, that like all the anti-trans like candidates like lost. So we should kind of further that with our votes of like doing that sort of thing too. With all that said, like my older sibling, they and gender, they think it's kind of like in the bag for Kamala Harris, and I'm not going to argue with that with them. But they're just gone checked out of the election. It's because they've been like in survival mode for the last 7 years. They just have enough spoons for them to work their job, full-time job, and raise their family of 4. Yeah, I don't. That's why I don't blame them as well too. So if they vote, yeah, I'm not gonna like try to like pressure people or like talk to people and try to get them to vote. Later, Space Cat, thank you for dropping in and saying hi. Nice chatting to you as well too. We'll chat in the Discord as always.
Yeah, thanks again, Space Cat. It's a pleasure hearing you.
And speaking of Phoenix, they're not voting at all, but that's mostly because of their situation. They've lost their temporary disability assistance program 8 months ago, and which was only like $150 a month, and like not enough to like.
Do you think that's something that Republicans rely on as well? Is like using all of this bullshit to grind people down so that they just become apathetic and don't vote? Do you think that's something they rely on? Yeah.
Which is where it's like I'm disappointed in the Democrats for like not when they have the power to not doing more to like energize the base or like to get us like to vote for them, because they're going to bring a lot of change. They're going to like improve things for people as well.
Well, that's the thing, right? Is that the Democrats they don't. Yeah, I mean, I think energize is really the thing, right? I mean, like the stepping down of Biden and the introduction of Kamala was a huge.
Yes.
Energetic thing like that energized the voter base a lot, but they need to ride that, and they need to do more things to be like, we're actually offering you something rather than it being just a vote against Trump, right?
Yeah,
that would be the other side of it. Is like, yeah, okay, good, we want to vote against Trump, awesome, but we also want to, we shouldn't just be riding that. We should be saying we're going to get rid of student debt, or that we're going to fight for Palestine, or that we're going to, whatever. She is transformed.
I'm back.
Yeah, welcome back.
I forgot about.
That's okay.
Well, look at you.
You look lovely, by the way.
Thank you. I kind of tried. I forgot that I made that date for tonight. So.
I'm going with a friend to see a musical soon.
Oh, which musical?
It's Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
it's been so long.
Cute, so I'm gonna.
Is that how does that stack up in terms of your favorites? What's your? If you had to make a top 3 right now, top 3 musicals.
I honestly have not seen Alice in Wonderland the musical, so I wouldn't know. But as for top 3 musicals, I would probably put Hadestown up there. I would probably put. What's another good one I really like? I mean, I know it's cliche, but Hamilton is kind of awesome. So, I'd listened to it again recently, and I was like, yeah, man, the music is fucking good. I mean, In the Heights is also great. I really enjoy In the Heights. But I don't mean to be biased towards Lin-Manuel Miranda. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
Hadestown is great. I'm a big fan of that one.
Hadestown, Hamilton, and then one more. Top 3.
What else? The Carole King musical. I think it's beautiful. It's great. Can recommend.
Geek and Space Cat and top 3 musicals. So
okay.
All right.
Yes.
Cat first.
1776, because like that one at least is not like too like gun-ho like jingless. Sometimes they actually were critical of the founding fathers as well too, like that song that the delegate from like South Carolina, he sang about like from molasses to rums to slave, saying that like, listen, you're shaming us for owning slaves, southern colonies, but you northern colonies benefit from that trade too, as well too. Other musicals, I just like thought of it as well too. The personal one, a fun thing happened on the way to the forum because I was a eunuch in my high school's production of it as well too, and I find it a lot of fun. Good. But like, oh damn it! What's another good one? I did see the movie Chicago, so I can say that.
Nice.
The
Book of Mormon. Have you seen the Book of Mormon?
I have not. No, wait. Hey, here's another good musical. Even though the creators themselves I don't like as much, they're loathsome, but at least this one musical, it was so good that even my mom loves it. South Park, Bigger, Longer, Uncut.
Oh yeah, again, yeah. Well, see, the Book of Mormon is also created by the South Park guys. So I understand that. Yeah, but I saw the. Oh, what am I talking about? Waitress. Waitress is one of my favorite musicals. I don't know why I didn't even think, but Waitress is one of my favorites. And Sarah Bareilles is one of my favorite singer-songwriters. And I've seen Waitress on Broadway, and it was fucking fantastic. And yeah, but then I seen the Book of Mormon on Broadway, and I also went and sat in the pit with the musicians. So like,
nice
guitarists and like watched them play and stuff. It was real cool.
Oh wait! Another great musical I only seen once. It was my community theater, did by the same director that did some fun thing happening with the forum. But like, You're in Town, that's a good musical.
Oh yeah, great musical.
Yes, it is good.
Yes.
Yeah, so, just a very weird. A very weird premise.
Yes.
Sorry, Space Cat keeps getting people calling her asking if certain things are poisonous if they ingested it, and I'm like, I'm not poison control. You should probably call.
Goodness me.
Hey, frustrated historian in the chat. Love Song by Sarah Bareilles is one of my favorite hits of 2008. She has so much more good stuff that you should listen to post Love Song, because Love Song was off her first album called Little Voice. I could be a Sarah Bareilles historian if I'm honest, but Love Song off a Little Voice back in the day was a very good song. Fun fact about that, it's not actually about a person, it's about the music industry. If you ever listen to the lyrics, you hear she's talking about not wanting to be kind of forced by the music industry to write this love song that will, that kind of thing. But then you should listen to the rest of her stuff, because King of Anything is great. The album her I suppose her latest album called Amidst the Chaos has some fantastic songs. And then also Waitress is really good as well. So, and she's in a TV show called Girls 5 Ever that you guys should definitely watch, because it's very funny.
I feel ashamed to not know who she is. I will have to look her up after this stream.
I'll send you
Space Cat, top 3 musicals. Space Cat, favorite musicals.
Top 3. I'm gonna have to go with. I did like You're in Town a lot, and I keep losing. Hold on. King of Anything was really good too. And I'm going to have to be stereotypical here. And we'll say Lion King was really good, but there's sentimental reasons why that was good. Sentimental reasons is mostly that.
Lion King's fantastic.
It's I've not seen it, the film.
It's good. It was the last musical I saw with my sister like a week before. Yeah. Aslan knows the story.
Oh.
Yeah.
See, I've realised that I am not. Maybe it's a British thing. Maybe because none of my choices have been mentioned whatsoever. Mine are very generic, right? So, Les Mis is just phenomenal.
Oh, Les Mis
too long.
Like it's very too long. I mean,
what are you doing?
It's she's talking to the cat.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Just making sure.
I was confused for a moment. I thought you were so disgusted. You were so disgusted at Aslan's revelation.
No, I was trying to get my cat to come here.
To be fair to Les Mis, it was originally a bunch of novels, which I think are better, or something like that. But also, I've been named the modern day version of Jean Valjean because of how generous I am with my donations to people. I mean, I am $25,000 worth of credit card debt because of it too, and some of my record spending. Some of my record spending on V-Bucks for Fortnite skins as well too. So yeah, but
all right, number 2, Mel. Oh no, sorry, Owen. Owen.
He's a moment. So Les Mis, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat is a personal favorite. Absolutely love the songs in that one.
Pit. I played
nice.
Oh, fantastic, excellent. It's just a really fun musical, I find. The songs are really great.
Yeah.
And then there's one when I went to Germany, we saw a musical called Starlight Express, completely in German. And I fell in love with it. Honestly, the songs and the way they did it on the stage there was so fantastic. And it beats out quite a few other ones. I mean, there's lots of songs that I like from musicals, and there's lots of musicals that I quite enjoy. But I think that one just, I really get behind it, I find.
Wait, I just thought of another excellent musical. It's a movie. Because I'm a huge anime fan, but I'm also a Daft Punk fan. Interstellar Story 5555, the story of the secret star system. I think it's just Interstellar 5555. You probably have seen clips of this movie if you've seen the music videos of Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, or One More Time, because the Daft Punk album Discovery was basically that movie. Interstellar 5555 was the movie to the album Discovery. Honestly, just look it up if you get a chance. It's awesome because no dialogue whatsoever. The only sound from that movie is from the album, which is a great album anyway, of Discovery by Daft Punk as well. So Interstellar 5555, and if you've seen those characters before, I think those look kind of familiar to me. It's Leiji Matsumoto. He he was character designer for Star Blazers or Space Battleship Yamato and Captain Harlock and Galaxy Express 999. Because I'm somewhere in the geek. I have to earn my name somewhere in the geek by just dropping some anime lore there.
Danny in the chat, Russell Crowe. I feel like poor Russell Crowe gets such a bad rap. I don't think he was that bad. I would offend Russell Crowe. I don't think he was terrible.
He's such a musician too.
One of my favorite Broadway musical actors. His name's Jeremy Jordan, and he was in Newsies. And he's also a show called a musical called The Last 5 Years, and he is just the most gorgeous. There's even there's a YouTube. You can go on YouTube and you can find this thing called Broadway Loves Celine, and so it's a bunch of these Broadway. It was a show a live show that happened on Broadway at some point, where all these Broadway singers came together and they all sang Celine Dion songs. And Jeremy Jordan does a couple of these. To the Celine Dion songs, and he's so good. I love him so much.
Celine Dion, what a singer, by the way.
I love Celine Dion.
I find my taste in music is it's not a specific genre. It's many genres. My phone is, I have to separate it out into dozens of little playlists because there's just too much. And someone like Celine Dion has such an amazing voice. I'm always blown away by how powerful and how extraordinary she is as she sings.
I love
just
her.
Incredible, amazing singer.
My mom loves.
How did we get onto musicals?
Because Melissa Space Cat was going to see a musical tonight.
Oh no, that's me. I'm going to see a musical. That's right.
Yes, but that's how we got to you going to see a musical tonight, because Space Cats also has a date tonight. So there we go.
That's right. There you go. Gotcha.
And to tie it back into our overall conversation, I feel like the arts will be massively hit if a certain party wins in November. Right?
Well, that's what happened here in New Zealand. The arts funding has been cut so much because of our right-wing government that has been elected here into New Zealand.
And in the UK.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you guys are back. You've got a
the Labour Party.
The Labour Party are back, right?
Yes.
Well, yeah, we're back after 14 years of austerity to do more austerity.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, fun times for us. We've got a marginally better Conservative Party essentially is in charge now.
Mm-hmm.
You never know.
It's kind of the same thing that happens here.
Yeah, you never know. Keir Starmer might be visited by he might be visited by 3 ghosts who will tell him to change his ways. He might have some like epiphany and suddenly realize that actually copying David Cameron and Theresa May and Boris Johnson and Liz Truss.
I might be going to a musical. She didn't tell me what we're doing. So I was just like, all right, okay, well, I'll see you then. I don't know.
Hey, the British Parliament. So here in New Zealand, right, when we get once the election has been held, that the amount of votes that each party gets gives them a certain amount of seats within the Parliament. So like our Parliament is generally made up of like, I don't know, 6 or 7 different parties with smaller and smaller amounts of, so like the majority party will have a whole bunch of seats, and then the opposition will have a whole bunch of seats, and then the Greens will have a bunch of seats, and maybe 3 or 4 or 5 other parties will have progressively smaller and smaller amounts of seats. Is that similar in the UK Parliament?
Not whatsoever, and we did have nothing like proportional representation. We have one of the worst
proportionate representation. That's the word. Yeah,
only America. Only America has a worse voting system than us in like modern world, I would say, in the developed West. So we have first past the post. Let's say you are running in, let's say, a constituency. MacDonald is a new constituency. I've decided it's a new constituency. MacDonald land. If you want to become the party that forms the next government, you need to win enough seats in MacDonald land to win. And so every area will have a constituency with a certain number of people in it, and they will elect one person to be their MP. And that is just based on first past the post. If you have most votes, then you win. And so what that means is you don't actually need to win majority of the whole country. So if you are the most popular party, you'd assume that you'd have the most votes, you'd get the sort of general consensus. No, win enough seats and you get the most seats in that government. It's almost like you get enough tokens to qualify to be the leading party, which means that despite Labour's landslide victory, despite the fact that we, the Labour Party, we have, a massive amount of Labour MPs, the actual vote share wasn't that much more than, I want to say 36%, which was less actually than Labour got under Corbyn a few years ago. But because the Conservative vote fell off massively and because of the distribution of the votes across the country, it has meant that Labour have an overwhelming majority in the government. And that might be a good thing if you, depending on where you stand. Obviously, the Conservatives losing is fantastic because they're awful and they've wrecked the country. But at the same time, Labour government are filled with people who agree with many of the same austerity right-wing policies. There's lots of LGBTQ people in the UK quite concerned that people like Wes Streeting, who have said and enacted some quite openly transphobic policies, basically have carte blanche to run healthcare, education.
So he's a Labour MP.
Yeah, he only won his seat actually by a few hundred votes. He was almost beaten by an independent, which suggests, which given he was one of the main high-profile, like we're the new Labour, we're going to save the country, like figures in the party. I find that quite a statement on that this government isn't actually that popular, which is quite dangerous too, because you've got people like Nigel Farage waiting in the wings, waiting.
No. His name is Nigel. His name is pronounced Nigel Farage.
That's interesting. So here in New Zealand, one of the things that I think that our proportional representation is quite good, but one of the problems that I've realized with our system is that so what happened this year was that they need to get I can't remember what the numbers are, but I know that they have to get a certain amount of the vote to become the next leader of the parliament, right? So they can be that the leader of their party becomes the prime minister, and so when that doesn't happen, which is generally all the time. They need to form a coalition with other parties, and that comes with certain concessions, right? So like when the Labour Party were the in the lead in the last election, they needed to form a coalition with the Greens so that they could get the majority or the supermajority or whatever it is, so that they could then form the government. And so that's fine. But see, what's happened with the current government is that that National didn't have the number of votes that they needed to get the prime minister, the seat of the prime minister. So they needed to form a coalition with New Zealand First and ACT, which are two far right parties here in New Zealand. And so these two parties that only got, I want to say 10, between 5 and 15% of the vote, very small number of the vote, now are given the position, like the two leaders of those parties have become the vice prime minister, or the deputy prime minister. I think they're sharing like half and half. So the leaders of their party have been given this inordinate amount of power over the way that the country is run, because of the fact that the National Party has needed to form a coalition with these smaller parties, which I find to be bizarre. And so now, so many of these really unpopular far right. And far right in the sense that, the ACT Party was running on one of their platforms was law and order, which is straight out of the MAGA playbook, right?
Yeah, it is
bizarre to me that they are vastly unpopular, but because of the way that the MMP, the system
mixed proportional
that we have, that they now have this amount of power that that they weren't voted for. It's kind of annoying.
I think that it's definitely one of the downsides of that form of government electoral process, and definitely it is scary when you see far right figures getting to sort of pal around with sort of more mainstream figures who unfortunately are susceptible to that sort of far right sort of stuff themselves. I think my only
we've got Nico.
I think Space Cat. I think your phone might be playing something coming through your speakers.
Are you playing the stream in the background?
What?
No, I'm not. I think you might need a mute shield.
I might be. Well, I gotta go anyway.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
But lovely. If you're going now, thank you for coming on. It's fantastic speaking to you. Take care, guys. Yeah. Take care, guys. Take care. Enjoy your evening. I was going to end the stream myself there for a second. That would be but no, I think because everyone else has experienced it, everyone else is used to the issues with how democracy works in a capitalist system, where you've got parties that are able to drum up false support and have dodgy allegiances and game the system a little bit. Here in the UK, where we've been stuck with first past the post for a very long time, every single year since we had our current voting system, we've been stuck with a conservative movement that has basically got to power consistently for centuries. And what that means is, even as support for the Conservatives is at an all-time low, they've basically had a prime minister in place for the majority of UK history, the history of UK government. So you can count the number of Labour prime ministers on two hands, probably only one if you. So I find
John Oliver did a really good, I found it to be very informative. He spoke through the history of all the last 14 years of Conservative rule in the UK. That was very informative to me. It's bizarre,
right? It's terrible, and you look across at the pond in America, and it's even worse, right? If they had a proper voting system, there's no way Trump wins, because who on earth would vote for it? If you could actually,
he never wins the popular vote.
Exactly right. No. Well, one Republican has in the 21st century.
George W. Bush won 2004, but that's because he was the incumbent, and that's it, basically.
Yeah.
Indeed, right?
What do you think of you know, I can imagine. I mean, I say I can imagine that this. I mean, I've just literally just imagined it now. I haven't really thought through any of the positives or negatives, but I can imagine a system where it is like MMP, like we've got now, but it's just like there's no prime minister, and it's just
like a caucus,
you have
almost like an open forum.
Yeah, like so your party wins 30% of the vote, you get 30% of the seats. Your party wins how many you get this amount of seats, and so then you've got this kind of equal or proportionate representation across the thing. And then I don't know. I'm trying to think of like a less hierarchical way of.
I mean, in some ways, like you have in some like idealized version of government, a prime minister isn't so much like the leader, but you know, the sort of the main speaker, the person who perhaps presents ideas, but has a cabinet behind them to come up with ideas. Like how in the UK you've got you know, Chancellor of the Exchequer, you've got the Home Secretary, Foreign Secretary, you've got various appointed heads of the various branches of the state to best cultivate ideas about how to run that state. But because in part of because of the Americanization of media, where the head of the state, you have like a big president debate. I mean, recently the Conservative Party were sort of dressing up their coverage of the election of their party like Americans do, where you've got the candidate stood in front of the bleachers, and there's all the supporters behind him holding up placards and stuff, and that has translated into the prime minister being seen almost as a head of state, and that's in part because our head of state is an actual monarch, and so because we still have a king, it sort of confuses it a little bit. So it appears as though a prime minister is equivalent to a president, but it's not quite the case of that. I feel as though if we're going to really talk about how to improve our democracies, it would involve talking about the framework around the democracy, because the issue with the system isn't the democracy itself, it's with the money that goes into it. The fact that the media is so brazenly corrupt and muddied off. The fact that you can't discuss individual issues sensibly. You have to discuss it through a lens of politics. Like climate change, for instance. Most people want climate change addressed in a sense of green policies, you know, changing how we produce energy, changing how our energy producing sector is managed. But because of the polarization of politics and of society, it's like a left-right issue now. It's like, oh, well, if you want to do climate change, then you're a liberal, you support the Democrats. And what that means is lots of people who would otherwise maybe not want like oil to continually be the main source of energy, or nothing to be done about the ongoing climate crisis, can't actually vote to change that because they're stuck in the mindset of, I'm a Republican, I've got to vote red, I can't vote for the blue side. Like, we're just stuck on so many issues that can be so easily fixed if there was a better form of actually voting for things and having change. But we're stuck with two parties, both of whom are unpopular, one of whom is openly fascist now, and nothing gets done.
I feel like the money in politics thing is so important. Like money in politics is just such. I mean, it's so openly corrupt as well. The amount that lobbying affects the way that. Oh my god,
apologies. Now I'm trying to. I saw Geek was on the bottom by himself, and thought this is a bit unfair. But I was trying to.
I actually do have to get going soon. But I just wanted to say to contribute to this last little bit. Yeah, about like how I feel like, how much the influence that money has. But I mean, it's because like capitalism is the system that we're under, and so capitalism is going to be the thing that is influencing that. It's until you get rid of capitalism, I don't think democracy is going to be able to be fixed.
Oh yeah. I agree, because like I forgot who said it at first as well too, but like when there's like, if you're under capitalism, there's no democracy, because it's like the money that like buys things, so especially for like the United States of America, because the candidates themselves have to put up the money. That's, I'm sure, how the founding fathers, quotes around founding fathers, wanted it, because I forgot it was the guy who like basically created what is now like the court system in the USA as it is. He was one of the founding fathers. He said the people who own the country should rule the country. they just hated that there was someone else, a king, that was doing it by divine birth or something like that. They wanted to rule the country because they wanted the game to capitalism, and so that's how it basically bribery is legal in the United States of America. It's just called lobbying or campaign finance as well too. It's just gotten like worse since the Citizens United decision in 2010 as well too. And I agree. Like Danny, of course, like everything capitalism touches is destroyed. So, which is why I'm deeply anti-capitalist. For other systems of like governance as well too. Well, I'm an anarchist, and I do believe that you can have governance without governments. Some examples you can look at how the Zapatistas in Chiapas, Mexico, kind of run things, but they're an indigenous group as well too. Many other indigenous people, like my friend Joey, the indigenous heretic, Joey Linder, has talked on like Social Justice Alchemy about how the Lakota people do it is by councils as well, essentially, as well too. Just group of councils, group of people as well too. But also the thing about that is just like they're not like leaders imposing that we're doing it this way and you have to like it or not as well too. It's more as like I suggest we do things this way, and we will like for more consensus decision-making process, which is what the Quakers kind of like regularly do, and that's tied into the religion as well too. Another example of society that's like operating in a more horizontal like way with like very little hierarchies as possible is like Rojava in the northeastern Syria. The like and they do Democratic Confederacy as well too, and that's another way to look at it as well. And maybe look at how the Spanish anarchists in like Catalonia between 1936 and 1939 also like run things as well too. Think by councils and worker councils as well too. I just really personally need to like research a lot of those things, including like a dual power, which like I think Lenin wrote about, but that actually was created by Pierre Joseph Proudhon, the mutualist as well too, who said, "What is property?" Short answer is property is theft, and that's a very reductive answer. You can read his whole memoir on that as well too. But like, yeah,
okay.
and Danny, of course.
Go ahead, Geek, sorry, finish off.
Well, I was just going to say that, like Danny Court said, the American Revolution was a civil war between one group of conservatives and another group of conservatives, with like everyone else like caught in the crossbar. Very true. It was a bourgeoisie revolution, just like the French Revolution, the English Civil War, and more or less, where it's just like they were just like rebelling against like the monarchy and the aristocracy, and like, well, they were the aristocracy by coin as well too. And again, they wanted to have control of the country as well too. Also, but the founding fathers also wanted to expand westward beyond the Appalachian Mountains, but the British Crown actually had treaties with those indigenous people there too. But once we're America, not part of the British colonies, then we can continue to expand westward. And so, and also, I think the British Crown in the 1700s, or that around that time, it could be correct on this, wanted to limit slavery in some ways, and some of the founding fathers were not in favor of that as well too. Go to the Behind the Bastards on like Thomas Jefferson. They covered not only of like what Thomas Jefferson did to his slaves as well too, that was not consensual at all, and that sort of thing too. But also he had his own like Disneyland in the mountains of like all about magic, but it was all operated by slaves. Listen to Behind the Bastards on Thomas Jefferson, because Thomas Jefferson, all the founding fathers are bastards anyway too. But like that'd be a whole nother topic or another time.
Well, I'm very glad the slave states lost the Civil War. I think is what I add to that. I actually I know you're sort of heading. You've got stuff to do, Aslan, and it's approaching 1 a.m. in the UK, so I am going to slowly head us towards a somewhat of a conclusion. We've got a bit more time, but we'll slowly head towards a conclusion. There's a fantastic book on the topic of slavery in the Civil War called "The Half Has Never Been Told" by Edward Baptist. I absolutely recommend it. I have it in one of my crates behind me.
I'll have to look it up. You said the half that... Say it again.
The Half Has Never Been Told. In fact, I'll get it for us if you to hold on the phone for a second. I'll show you it very quickly.
Yeah, I think there's also one other book that I need to read by Xur X. Kendi. He's the guy who wrote like How to Be an Anti-Racist. He also wrote a history book, Stamped from the Beginning, and it's about
Ibram X. Kendi.
Yes, Ibram X. Kendi. Yeah, so like but honestly, just like read any book by him as well too. He might be like worth reading as well too, because like a lot of cool people.
There's two books that I can recommend. One of them which I started reading recently, and I think it's by Robin DiAngelo, I want to say.
Whitebeard trilogy.
Actually, no, it's not Robin DiAngelo. I lied. It's It is by Angela Davis. Sorry.
Women Racing Class.
It's called Abolition Feminism Now. So it's about about an intersection between feminism and abolitionism. And it's and saying how feminism, arguing that feminism should always be abolitionist and that abolitionism should always be feminism. Feminist.
Yes, I agree.
So it's a good book. You should read that one. And the other one that I was reading is called Te Tiriti o Waitangi, which is about the Treaty of Waitangi, which is basically the New Zealand history. So in the same vein of thinking of the American Civil War and slavery and those kinds of things, this is to do with the founding of New Zealand and basically how the Crown fucked over the indigenous people here. And it's a really good book. It's worth reading.
Okay, so
on the topic of fantastic books to read, so I had to get this out of a crate. I only moved into this flat not long ago, so a lot of my books and stuff are in crates. This book here, The Hearth Has Never Been Told. In fact, is my screen mirrored? Actually, I'm just realizing. Is this?
No, I can see that. Yeah, that's the right way.
That.
No, that's the right way.
It's an absolutely imperative read for anyone who wants to learn about slavery in the US, because it goes into oral, detailed descriptions of what slavery was like for the slaves who lived it. And so, there's nice passages in here. I say nice, it's definitely not a word for it, but really rich, just vivid descriptions of what went on for the slaves and how American capitalism was built and constructed and made extremely profitable through the work of these guys, the people who, the men, women, children, the Black history of America that basically went untold because of the story of empire and of wealth. And it covers the Civil War as well, and it sort of really is a fantastic not that you need it disproven because it's quite obvious, but everyone who goes on about states' rights and and how the Civil War was about other stuff and how slavery wasn't that big a deal. No, this book firmly serves as evidence to the nonsense that white supremacists and racists and all the sort of right-wing people who've been suckered along by that like to say about it. It's gone into a few of my essays that I've written for university. It's a magnificent, I can't recommend it enough. If you read one book about racism and the Deep West, the Deep South, and antebellum, make it this one.
I will. I will. Hey, I do have to shoot now. It was so cool to talk to you guys. We'll probably do it for another 4 hours.
Probably.
It's been fantastic speaking to you, Aslan, again. Geek, it's always a pleasure having you on the show as well. I'm very glad you were able to find some time. Hopefully, I've not taken too much time out of your work day, but I'm now actually thinking that maybe this is a nice break from work.
Oh yeah, it is, honestly.
I'm hoping to do more streams. We've got a month till the election. I'm hoping to speak to lots of people about the election. A few of them might be a bit more right-wing than the ones we've had on today.
I'd like to be on one of those streams. I'd like to talk to right-wing people.
Anyone in the audience, drop me a message. I'm more than happy to speak to anyone pretty much. And unless you're like some Nazi bomber or something, in which case hand yourself in to your authorities immediately. However, for the majority of the rest of you, drop me a line. I'm happy to chat to anyone. Thanks for coming on, and thank you also to Space Cat earlier for coming on as well. It's been great chatting to you. Enjoy the rest of your days because it's not quite as late as it is here in the UK. Take care, everyone.
Take care, everyone.